and colleagues, members of the press, I want to welcome you to this very important meeting. My name is Dr. Raymond Nyeris, the Vice Chairperson of Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And I'm going to read our statement on the status of human rights in Kenya between the period July 2023 to November 2024 on behalf of our chair, Madam Rosalyn Odede. Fellow Kenyans, I am appearing before you today pursuant to the mandate bestowed upon the Commission, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, by the Constitution of Kenya to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms of all in our beloved nation. As an A-status national human rights institution, I take pride in the role the Commission has played nationally, regionally, and internationally to infuse human rights principles and standards in laws, policies, and practice. To this end, the Commission has always endeavored to make an annual State of Human Rights address that reflects and appreciates the gains, marks the progress, points the challenges, and calls out on areas that needs to be ensured that they are enjoyed. This statement is a summary of Kenya National Commission State of Human Rights Report 2023-2024 that covers the period of 18 months between July 2023 and November 2024. As we issue this statement, it is important to reiterate that human rights accrue to all by virtue of being human. Human rights are not a favor, but rather an entitlement and can only be limited in accordance with Article 24 of the Constitution of Kenya. The state, as the duty bearer, has the responsibility to respect, fulfill, and uphold all human rights and fundamental freedoms. Similarly, the people as the right holders have an obligation to enjoy their rights responsibly. Fellow Kenyans, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will now address you on the current state of respective human rights and fundamentals as provided for in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya, which contains our progressive Bill of Rights. First, the right to life. The enjoyment of right to life is sacrosanct regardless of the circumstances. During the year under review, violations of this right were witnessed during the anti-finance bill demonstrations, which took place between June and July 2024. During this period, the Commission documented 60 deaths that were perpetrated during the demonstrations. The Commission also notes the unprecedented surge in femicide cases, with 97 cases having been reported in the last 3 months, according to the National Police Service. What is more troubling is the brutality in which these femicides are carried out. A case in point was the discovery of about 10 decomposing bodies, only women, from Kware dam site in Mukuru area of Nairobi. Further, in the period under review, the Commission documented the recovery of 448 bodies in Shakahola Forest. The Commission commends the Inspector General of Police for acknowledging that deaths did indeed occur during the demonstrations and calls upon him to expedite investigations on these cases and bring the perpetrators to book. We call upon IPOA to investigate and recommend charges against any officers implicated in extrajudicial killings. We further call on the government to adopt the Minnesota Protocol on the investigation of potentially unlawful death. We appreciate the progressiveness of our judiciary, which in the period under review declared the mandatory life imprisonment unconstitutional. Additionally, we appreciate the efforts of His Excellency the President of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, for his commutation of all death sentences issued up to November 2022 to life imprisonment. This is indeed a progressive step and an indication of the country's commitment to safeguarding the right to life. On legislation, on matters impacting on the right to life, the Commission continues to monitor the progress being made on the Prevention of Enforced Disappearances Bill, the abolition of death penalty, the Penal Code Amendment Bill, and the Preservation of Public Security Amendment Bill 2023, and we call upon Parliament to fast-track the enactment of these proposed laws. Right to freedom and security of persons. Fellow Kenyans, the rising cases of abductions and enforced disappearances are an affront to the human rights tenets that our country ascribes to. We continue to witness and record the cruel, degrading, inhuman treatment of persons taken against their will. The daring happenings recorded on videos and photographs are some even displaying civilian and security agent number plates, are rapidly taking the country back to the dark days of our history. The Commission has documented 1,376 arbitrary arrests, as well as 610 cases of injuries from June 18 to November 2024. These injuries were sustained in the course of the demonstrations and ranged from deep fractures, bullet wounds, soft tissue injuries, and inhalation of tear gas. Most of the injuries were inflicted by the security officers against protesters. The Commission documented 25 injuries inflicted on security officers by the protesters. We further recorded 74 cases of enforced disappearances in the period June to November 2024, out of which 26 people are still missing today. We call for an immediate halt to the unlawful arrests, abductions, and enforced disappearances, as well as the fast-tracking of investigations and prosecutions of all those found culpable. We further call on the criminalization of enforced disappearances and the ratification of the International Convention of the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. The continuous insecurity and human suffering in the North Rift and Northeastern regions remains a concern to the Commission, with persistent loss of lives, livelihoods, and displacements. We call upon the legislative support to address banditry through the enactment of the Prevention of Livestock and Produce of Theft Bill that is before the Senate Bill number 12 of 2023. The right to privacy. Ladies and gentlemen, Article 31 of the Constitution guarantees every person the right to privacy. In the wake of the anti-finance bill demonstrations, personal information such as names, contacts, and locations of people, including details of family members, were displayed without the consent of those involved. The Office of the Data Commissioner, however, addressed the matter, reminding all citizens of their duty to respect and uphold the right to privacy. The thwarted attempt to give access to the Kenya Revenue Authority on people's data through the finance bill, the tax assessment, disclosure, or enforcement gives impetus to the government to be at the forefront of safeguarding the right to privacy. In this regard, the Commission reiterates that all persons, state and non-state actors, have an obligation to protect the right to privacy provided for under Article 31 of the Constitution, Data Protection Act, Cap 411C, and the attendant regulations. Freedom of association. Fellow Kenyans, the right to freedom of association, which includes the right to form, join, or participate in the activities of an association of any kind, is protected under Article 36 of the Constitution of Kenya. During the period under review, the profiling of 16 public benefits organizations as having funded the anti-finance bill was unconstitutional and against the spirit and letter of Public Benefits Organization Act 2013, whose operationalization took effect on 14 May 2024. The country had waited for this operationalization for 11 years, only for the actions during the protest to take us back with a stroke of a pen. To date, the authorities have not stated the culpability of the cited organizations. The Commission therefore views this as an attempt to intimidate and muscle PBOs, further shrinking the saving space. The Commission cautions against such direct and indirect interference of operations of PPOs, which are legally guaranteed under Section 3D to exercise effective control and management over the administration of the activities and funding. Freedom of conscience, religion, and belief and opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, the Shakahola tragedy caught the country by surprise, with hundreds of citizens having lost their lives in the guise of religion, whereas the Constitution under Article 32 guarantees every person the freedom of a conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion. This right is not absolute and may be limited on the grounds of public safety, order, health, or morals, or the fundamental rights and freedoms of others. The Kenya National Commission of Human Rights undertook an intensive investigation into the massacre, and our findings were recorded in the Mashaka Yashakahola report. We documented 448 deaths, with recorded statements indicating over 600 people were still missing. During the year, exhumations continued even as suspects of the massacre went through the legal process in court. The Commission further notes that only less than 10% of the bodies have been identified and handed over to the families for interment with dignity as per their cultural and religious beliefs. As exhumations and investigations continue, the Commission calls for the full operationalization of the National Corona Service Act 2017, which will have enabled effective, independent investigations. The Commission also calls for the expeditious release of the proposed legal framework on the regulation of religious organizations for public participation. We further call on the National Treasury and Parliament to allocate and urgently disperse optimal resources to all the agencies dealing with the various aspects of the Shakahola tragedy. Freedom of expression in the media.